I'm Charlie Bright of Gold Derby, and today I'm speaking with Simon Racioppa, the executive producer and showrunner of the Prime Video series The Boys Diabolical, as part of our Meet the Experts panel on television animation. First question I wanted to ask was, what was the process like of getting this incredible group of people to come and write one episode of this animated short?
Yeah, that's a great question, and thanks for having me. Basically, it came about, I was working with Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg on Invincible, which is another show I do. And after that was sort of in post, we started talking. They wanted to make a show that exists in the Boys universe, but they wanted to make something really fast that could come out in time, sort of as a treat for the fans before season 3 of The Boys launched. And they had this idea of doing sort of an animated anthology series. And we were like, well, who could we get to write these? And they're like, why don't we just go out to people whose work we really admire or we like and ask them and see if they'd be interested in doing an episode of the show. So like essentially getting to make their own short film in the world of The Boys. So it kind of helps when you have, Seth Rogen also making these calls for you. So we just started to make a list. We had a much longer list than we ended up. We only had 8 slots at the end of the day, but we made a list and we just started calling people up and just being like, hey, we've heard you're a fan of The Boys. Do you want to do an episode with us? You can do whatever you want. We'll help you. It'll be awesome. We won't ask too much of you. And people just started saying yes. And then when we hit 8, we stopped asking.
So were you guys involved in the casting process of each of these, or was that done by just the writer and the director on their own?
No, we were involved in the casting. So the primary team was myself, and Giancarlo Volpe, who was our supervising director over all 8 episodes, and then obviously we had the brain trust, which was Eric Kripke, who's the original showrunner and creator of The Boys, Evan and Seth, and some other EPs from a couple different companies who are working with like Original Films, Kripke Enterprises. Obviously, Sony was one of our big producers. But it was mostly, we would talk to the writer when they came in with their episode, and we had ideas about who we thought we could cast and relationships either I already had or Seth or Evan, other people already had. We just went about it the same way. We made lists. We had a great casting director named Linda LaMontagne, who also does Invincible with me, who came in with great suggestions. And we just sort of started going out and sort of like casting the people we thought would be best for the roles. But the writers did play a role in that, yeah.
Was there any bit of casting that you, because the cast is just absolutely insane. Is there any piece of casting in there that you look at it and you're like, I can't believe we got this person?
Mostly it's Don Cheadle. It's the stuff we made poor Don Cheadle say when he came in for his role, because we were just throwing more sort of ad-lib stuff. We were coming up with the spot to just try and punch up his character and what he was saying a little bit. And he was just like, you want me to say what? Really? Okay, so that was great. So getting him was great. Working with Awkwafina, she plays versus herself in her episode, that was really fun. Everybody was amazing. It's a treat, our cast. It was so wonderful hearing these people come in and then lift the words off the page and just sort of like really embody the characters.
How was the animation style of each episode determined?
So in some cases, it was a very early decision. So for example, we have an episode called Laser Babies Stay Out, which was written by Seth and Evan and was originally conceived to be a Looney Tunes style homage, right, to those classic Roger Rabbit kind of cartoons. So that we knew the style we wanted that to be from the very, very start. And then our job really was just finding the right people who could execute on that in every single way. Some of the other episodes were like Justin Roiland's episode. Also, we were going to do it in Justin Roiland style, so we knew that off the top. Some of the others, it was a bit more of a discussion and a discovery as we got the scripts in, as we started to think about the episodes and discuss them. So like Boyd in 3D, a little bit more of a storybook kind of, episode. So we wanted that to be, we started talking about like Sylvain Chomet's work on Triplets of Belleville, and The Magician, and sort of that led us to a French production company called Folivari, who helped us do the design for that. So it was an organic process. Some we knew right off the bat, others we discovered along the way.
What has been some of the things that you really enjoy getting to see in this universe done in animation that you weren't, because it's animated, you weren't able to do on the live action series on The Boys? What are some of your favorite things about that?
I think the best thing about it was obviously the main show has a very straight long storyline. It's telling the story of the seven along with some other characters like Butcher's team. We were able to just go into much crazier directions. Basically, we were able to say like, what would happen if you maybe drank Compound V instead of injecting it? What could that do? What about an older Korean couple who you probably would not see on the regular show? What could be their story with Compound V? And that was Andy Samberg's episode. So it just let us really be free to just blow the doors open on the world and just go off in a whole bunch of directions that you wouldn't get to do when you only have 8 episodes focused around the main characters of a television series.
And were there any specific moments that you look at and you find yourself going, I really like that moment?
I think Andy Samberg's episode, which was directed by Steve Ahn, it's called John and Son He. It's I think a heartbreaking story about love and loss and about how life involves death, and sometimes it's okay to say goodbye. All told in the boys' universe. That one was not originally intended to be a very Korean-centric episode. That was not the way the script originally was written. There wasn't our original conception of that script. When we brought Steve on onto the film, he had some personal connections to that, some family history that sort of helped him connect with that story. And he was asked us very early on, he's like, I'd like to make this couple Korean. I'd like to give it a much more Korean flavor. And I'm not Korean. Andy Samberg's not Korean. Giancarlo Volpe, our supervising director, is not Korean. So we couldn't do that, but we could support him and help him do that as best as we could. And I feel like that episode had such a trajectory and became something so much greater than I even envisioned when I first started working on that with Andy. Like, it was just, that was a beautiful thing. I'm so happy with the way that came out.
Was it Steve's idea to see if Yoon Jung would be willing to be a part of this?
I think her name came up very early on amongst all of us, because once we started talking to Steve and making the episode Korean, we were like, well, let's get Korean actors. Let's get a Korean studio. We use this Korean animation studio called Studio Animal, I think, for that one. Let's get a Korean composer. Let's try and make it as Korean as possible. So she was one of the names that came up very early on, along with Randall Duck Kim, who we ended up getting. She was amazing. She was great. We got her just before her Oscar win. So we can say we got her before that. I'd seen her in Minari, and I thought she was great. So that was one of the reasons we went after her.
You had these premiere before season 3 of The Boys, which is coming up next month. And has there been talk about doing another batch of these episodes?
Yeah, we're having preliminary conversations. No decision has been made yet, but I have ideas about how we'd like to do more. I think the promise of Diabolical is that it doesn't repeat anything you see on the main show. We have to go somewhere different. The main show does what it does so well and so perfectly. I want to give you a taste of other things, other areas, places you haven't seen, backstories you haven't heard, and make it all new every season. So I want it to be new styles, new stories, new directions, new characters, and sort of push it in that direction.
And also, just one last thing. I mean, if another batch of episodes were greenlit, who would be at the top of your wish list to write one of these episodes?
Oh my God, that's a really tough question. Oh man, Margaret Atwood. I don't know that. I think that could be amazing. It'd be great to go like really wild card and find someone who's just out there and be like, what's your story? So I'd love to go to some like classic literary authors and just see what they could do. Maybe someone who's not traditionally a screenwriter would be great.
All right. Well, Simon, thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on our panel in just a little bit.
Great. Thanks so much.